When a child cries in Gaza and 57 nations stay silent, that silence speaks louder than bombs. We don't need statements. We need sacrifice. Because what is the value of diplomacy if it can't defend a dying child? What is the point of summits, speeches, and photo ops if they cannot answer the simple cry of a mother burying her child in rubble? While Gaza burns, too many leaders polish their medals and tweet their concern from palaces far removed from the blood and smoke. It's a performance of compassion, not the practice of it. And let's be clear, this isn't about politics. This is about principle, about what it means to be human, what it means to have power and choose to do nothing, to have strength and still turn your back. That's not leadership, that's betrayal. There was a time when the Muslim world moved as one, when one wound bled in Damascus, the tears were felt in Jakarta. When a wall fell in Jerusalem, the pain was echoed in Rabat. But today, it feels like we've traded that unity for luxury, that brotherhood for business. We measure influence by oil prices and summit invitations, not by how we protect the most vulnerable among us. Gaza is not just a strip of land, it is a test, a mirror, a truth we don't want to face, because if we faced it, really looked into the eyes of the children sheltering in mosques turned morgues, we would have to admit that we have failed them. Not just once, not just recently, consistently, when the bombs fall, when the drones strike, when the bulldozers move in, and the mothers scream into the night, they are not just asking for mercy from their oppressors. They are asking for solidarity from their brothers. And what do they get? Resolutions delayed, border crossings debated, condemnations softened to suit foreign allies. They are not asking for the impossible. They are asking to live, to be heard, to not be forgotten, and yet the world forgets them again and again, and their own blood forgets them most of all. Look, I'm not saying it's easy. Nothing righteous ever is. I know that standing up comes with risk. But if you're too scared to risk your image, your trade agreements, your seat at the international table, then step down and let someone with a spine speak. Because power is not meant to be preserved. It's meant to be used to protect, to uplift, to shield those without a voice. We speak of justice in Friday sermons, we write verses on our walls, but when the time comes to act, to truly act, we fold. We sit, we watch, and every time we do, a part of our dignity dies with Gaza. This is not just a war on a people, it's a war on our conscience, and conscience is not some abstract idea. It is the fire in your chest when you see injustice and feel it burn. If that fire has gone out, then no title, no flag, no constitution can bring it back. That fire must be reignited, not with words, not with outrage that lasts a day, but with sustained, unapologetic, unrelenting action. So ask yourself this: if Gaza were your home, if your mother was screaming over your brother's body, if your child hadn't eaten in days, what would you want the world to do? What would you expect from 57 nations who call you family? That's the question that should haunt every silent capital. And until they answer it with more than concern, with more than bangles and banquets, Gaza will keep crying, and history will not forgive the ones who heard her and did nothing. Muslim unity isn't shown in handshakes and summits. It's proven in the fire. It's not what you say in front of cameras that matters. It's what you do when the world isn't watching, when the bombs fall at night, and the children can't sleep because the sky won't stop roaring. That's when real unity is tested, and right now, too many are failing that test. You see, it's easy to gather in luxury halls, wearing tailored suits, reciting statements written by advisors. But the people of Gaza don't need more words. They need will. They need real action, not unity in hashtags, not unity in Friday prayers, unity in standing together without apology against a system that has dehumanized them for generations. Unity is not theory, it is sacrifice. It is giving up comfort to fight for justice. But what do we see? Delegations shaking hands while homes in Gaza are turned to dust. Leaders posting condolences while hospitals run out of medicine. What kind of unity is this, that watches its own bleed while calculating the cost of a strong stance? What kind of brotherhood is scared of offending power when its own people are being broken daily? Let's call it what it is: fear dressed as diplomacy, and fear has never protected a single life in Gaza. Some will say it's complicated. No, it's not. It's brutal. It's unjust. It's wrong. What's complicated is justifying why 57 countries, representing over 1 billion people, remain fragmented and inactive when one of their own is crushed. What's complicated is explaining to a child in Rafah why no one came, why no one stood, why the Ummah looked the other way, and in the middle of this storm, what do we see instead? Diplomacy turned into decoration. Pretty words, flashy meetings, ribbons cut, photos taken, awards exchanged. It's all performance. We dress up this failure with gold, plated pens signing hollow resolutions. We speak of de-escalation, as though we've forgotten who has the guns and who has the stones. Our leaders wear symbols of status while Gaza's children wear trauma. Bangles look pretty, but they don't stop bullets. Jewelry and protocol don't end blockades. What's needed is courage. What's needed is clarity. Not more stages, not more soft statements, but real, sharp decisions. Diplomatic elegance is meaningless if it's not backed by the grit to stand against tyranny. And too many wear the garments of leadership without carrying the weight of it. They've confused appearance with impact. But Gaza doesn't need beautiful speeches. It needs brave actions. And here's the bitter truth. While Gaza cries for help, many of those with the power to act are more concerned with preserving relationships than preserving lives. They want to maintain access, invitations, investments. But let me ask you, what is the price of dignity? What does a soul cost when you trade it for security deals and business ties? We've made diplomacy a shield for cowardice. We've made unity a brand instead of a bond. And every day we delay, another child becomes a memory. Another family is erased. Another generation grows up believing that their lives are too cheap to matter. So we have a choice. We can keep polishing our image, or we can finally reflect our values. We can keep decorating our fear, or we can finally dare to stand, truly stand, for justice, no matter the cost. Because history doesn't remember how quiet you stayed. It remembers whether you stood when it mattered most. And for Gaza, that time is now. If one house is burning, and your neighbors don't bring water, what are they to you? That's not brotherhood. That's abandonment. That's betrayal. Gaza is that burning house, and the neighbors, the 57 Muslim countries, are watching from windows, peeking through curtains, whispering to each other, but refusing to walk across the street with a bucket. We talk about the Ummah, the Muslim nation, like it's a sacred bond. But what kind of nation stands by while its own children are slaughtered in their beds? What kind of brotherhood turns away when its own blood is crying out from beneath the rubble? It's easy to say we are one when it costs nothing, when you're safe, when you're eating well, when your family is asleep in peace and the bombs are dropping somewhere else. But that's not what brotherhood is. Brotherhood isn't built on convenience. It's built on commitment, on sacrifice, on standing up when it's hard, when it's dangerous, when the world tells you to stay silent. You don't get to call yourself a brother if you leave your sister screaming alone. When we look at the state of Gaza, it's not just a humanitarian failure. It's a moral collapse. And it starts with this myth of solidarity that too many leaders recite but refuse to live. They attend conferences with the Palestinian flag in the background, nodding solemnly, offering prayers, maybe even pledging a few $1 million. But where is the pressure? Where is the force? Where is the full weight of 57 nations demanding justice, not just for politics, not just for optics, but for humanity? What's happened is that convenience has replaced commitment. Most of these nations aren't asking, what's right? They're asking, what's safe for us? What keeps our economy stable? What keeps our alliances strong? And while they calculate, children die. While they hesitate, mothers scream. While they play chess, people are buried. This isn't just about Gaza. This is about who we are, who we claim to be. If the Ummah means anything at all, then its weakest, most wounded members should be its greatest priority. But right now, they're being treated like an inconvenience, like a liability. That's not the Ummah the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, spoke of. He said the believers are like a single body. When one part hurts, the whole body feels the pain. But what we're seeing today isn't a body in pain. It's a body paralyzed by fear, by politics, by cowardice. And let's be real. This failure doesn't just wound Gaza. It wounds all of us. It damages our spirit. It rots our values. Because if we can watch this horror unfold day after day, and still go on with business as usual, still host concerts and festivals, still build skyscrapers and launch space programs, while a people who share our language, our history, our faith are reduced to statistics, then maybe we've lost more than just political credibility. Maybe we've lost our soul. This is the hour of truth. The question is no longer, do we care? The question is, will we act? Because caring without action is just noise. And Gaza doesn't need noise. It needs neighbors who act like family, not strangers. It needs solidarity that breaks walls, not just hashtags. It needs a body of believers that feels the pain and does something about it. And if we fail now, then we were never brothers. We were just bystanders pretending to be a family. History doesn't remember who stood tall in the palace. It remembers who knelt beside the broken. You can have titles, thrones, fleets, and fortunes. But if, in the hour of crisis, you choose comfort over compassion, then your legacy will be written in dust. The people of Gaza don't need rulers dressed in elegance. They need leaders grounded in empathy. And right now, the pages of history are watching closely. Watching as 57 Muslim nations sit in silence, issuing statements while the rubble in Gaza grows higher with the bones of the innocent. Watching as leaders shake hands with those who drop the bombs and turn their backs on those who bury the dead. And this isn't just about shame. This is about what we leave behind. Generations from now, children will read about this moment. They will ask, where was the Muslim world? Where was the outrage? Where was the action? And what will we tell them? That we had to be careful, that it was a sensitive time, that diplomacy tied our hands. No child hiding in Gaza's ruins will ever understand that. No orphan will find comfort in your political calculations. The truth is brutal, and it must be said. We've made our peace with hypocrisy. We talk about justice on Fridays and sign defense deals on Mondays. We cry for Gaza in public and fund its oppressors in private. We wear keffiyehs in the streets while approving silence in Parliament. And every time we do that, we dig another grave, not just in Palestine, but in the moral foundation of our own societies. What is history but a mirror? And right now, that mirror is cracked, because it reflects a generation of leaders more concerned with legacy projects and personal security than with the sacred duty of standing beside the oppressed. And let me be clear, true leadership isn't about how many people bow before you. It's about how many people you're willing to kneel beside when the world turns its back on them. It's about courage, not comfort. Action, not applause. I've heard the excuses. We must be strategic. We have our hands tied. We're doing what we can behind the scenes. But scenes change. The only thing that remains is truth. And the truth is, no amount of behind the scenes strategy justifies the inaction of 57 nations who claim to be bound by a shared faith, a shared pain, and a shared responsibility. We look up to our heroes of the past, Salahuddin, Omar Mukhtar, Muhammad Ali, men who stood when standing came with a cost. Do you think they asked for permission before they defended the oppressed? Do you think they paused to calculate the impact on their trade relations or diplomatic ties? No, they understood something this generation has forgotten, that history doesn't forgive cowardice, and it certainly doesn't celebrate it. There is a child in Gaza tonight who will not wake up. And there is a leader in a distant land who will sleep just fine, because he believes his silence is political wisdom. But history will wake him. History will whisper his name, not with honor, but with disappointment. And the world will remember not his palace, not his power, but the people he chose to ignore when they needed him most. So I say this with no apology. If you have power, and you don't use it to defend the defenseless, then you have no right to it. If you have a voice and choose not to speak, then you've chosen the side of the oppressor. And if you have the means to act and still do nothing, then history will not remember you as a leader. It will remember you as the reason the innocent were left alone. And Gaza will never forget who watched her suffer in silence. History doesn't remember quiet comfort. It remembers the courage to speak when silence was the easy road. And right now, as Gaza drowns in dust and blood, the silence of 57 Muslim nations is louder than the screams of the wounded. We like to believe we are on the right side of history, that we are principled, that we are just. But the truth is far more bitter. We are absent, we are muted, and one day that silence will testify against us. You see, every generation has a moment that defines its legacy. For us, this is that moment. Gaza is that moment, and the question is not whether we see the suffering. We do. The images are everywhere. The question is, do we care enough to act? Because caring is not liking a post. It's not releasing a statement. It's not condemning in words and collaborating in deals. Caring means sacrifice. It means standing up and saying enough, even if it costs you, even if it costs us influence, money, or diplomatic ties. Because if your principles only exist when they're convenient, then they were never principles to begin with. They were just decorations, and make no mistake, this is not about politics. This is about humanity. This is about children who no longer dream because they don't live long enough to imagine tomorrow. This is about a people stripped of their homes, their hopes, their history. And while they dig graves with bare hands, leaders in the Muslim world are busy managing optics. They host events. They light up buildings in symbolic colors. But symbolism does not stop occupation. Diplomacy without action is just performance. And history doesn't reward performances. It rewards truth. We sit in a world that cries for freedom, yet we watch Gaza suffocate. We host international summits, speak of global justice, yet make no room at the table for those bleeding in real time. The hypocrisy is not lost on the people, not in Gaza, not in the streets of Cairo, not in the markets of Karachi, not in the cafes of Istanbul. The world sees it. Our youth sees it. The next generation is watching. And they are learning that when power faced morality, power stayed silent. That when truth was on trial, the Muslim world was out to lunch, and will be asked, if not now, then when? If not for Gaza, then for who? What more needs to happen for us to break this pattern of cowardice? Another child buried, another school destroyed, another ceasefire broken like a promise never meant to be kept. How much blood is enough before we finally stand? Not just in words, but in deeds. Not just with money, but with policy. Not just with outrage, but with accountability. There are moments when silence is a betrayal. This is one of them, because when you have the power to act and choose not to, you are not neutral. you are complicit. And when the dust settles, when the war ends and the martyrs are counted, Gaza will ask who stood and who watched, who spoke and who stayed quiet, and so will our children, so will history. Let us not be remembered as the generation that had the numbers, the wealth, the strength, but lacked the heart. Let us not leave behind a legacy of words floating in a void of inaction. Let us not be the ones who had a chance to answer the cries of the oppressed and walked away. Gaza is calling, and history is listening. There comes a time when the world must look itself in the mirror and ask, what have we become? And for the 57 Muslim countries who watch Gaza burn while doing nothing of consequence, that time is now. What we're witnessing is not just a humanitarian crisis. It's a spiritual collapse, because you cannot claim to believe in justice, mercy, or solidarity while you turn your back on a people begging for breath beneath the rubble. Gaza is not asking for charity. Gaza is asking for justice, for dignity, for the right to live like any other human being on this planet. Yet the silence remains. The excuses pile up. Leaders say we can't interfere, or we're working quietly, or it's a delicate situation. But let me ask you, how delicate does a slaughter have to get before you say, enough? How quiet must a genocide become before you can no longer sleep through it? Gaza is not a foreign issue. It is not a political inconvenience. It is the bleeding heart of our collective conscience, and the longer we ignore it, the more we sever the soul of who we are. Look around. What do we see from the leadership of the Muslim world? Lavish conferences, lavish lifestyles, gleaming skylines, expanding bank accounts, but not a single decisive move to stop the suffering of their Palestinian brothers and sisters. We are so obsessed with development, with modernization, with becoming global players, yet we can't even play the most basic role of a brother when it matters most. What is all the wealth for, if not to protect the innocent? What is all this power for, if not to defend the weak? And the bitter irony is that the Muslim world does have power, economic power, diplomatic influence, cultural reach, but what it lacks is the will, the courage, the spine, because using that power would require confrontation. It would require standing up to friends, to allies, to superpowers. And for too many, that price is too high, so they choose inaction. They choose comfort, and they wear that comfort like bangles. Pretty, decorative, but useless in a fight for survival. We have allowed the lives of Palestinian children to become statistics, their pain to become background noise. And yet, we wonder why our youth are angry, why they protest, why they lose faith in institutions, in nations, in leaders. It's because they see the truth. They see that when it came time to act, the Ummah folded. That when Gaza cried, the Muslim world turned up the volume on everything but justice. We must face a harsh truth. We have normalized the abnormal. Bombings are expected. Occupation is routine. Injustice is part of the news cycle. And each time we accept it, each time we scroll past another image of destruction without action, we kill a piece of our humanity. We are being conditioned to be numb, and that numbness is a slow death of the soul. The question now is not whether we can act. It is whether we will choose to, whether we will step out of the shadows of diplomacy and into the light of responsibility, whether we will stop polishing our reputations and start lifting the broken. Because if we don't, then we are not victims of global injustice. We are contributors to it. Gaza is not just calling for help. Gaza is calling for the Muslim world to remember who it is. And if we don't answer now, then perhaps we never truly belong to the cause we claim to defend.